Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed,
where we break down the world's news from every angle.
from the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thanks for listening.
Hi, I'm Nina,
And I'm Jules.
and we'll be your hosts for today's news collection.
Welcome, curious listeners, to the Deep Dive. I'm really glad you could join us today, because honestly, we are about to jump into a world that sounds a bit like science fiction, but it's actually happening right now. Imagine, just for a second, if everyday ice, like the stuff in your freezer, could power our homes, or if ancient Roman battle gear just surfaced after thousands of years looking almost new. And what if those gut feelings you get, those little hunches, what if they were actually glimpses into the future? That's just a small taste of the incredible discoveries and dilemmas we're exploring today. This deep dive is basically your shortcut to being truly well-informed. Think of it as your fast pass to understanding the sheer amount of information hitting us every single day. We're not just scratching the surface here. We're digging deep, pulling out the most important bits of knowledge, the key insights from, a whole stack of recent global events. We're looking at everything. Complex geopolitical shifts, groundbreaking scientific research, and even the surprising ways technology is changing our daily lives, maybe even our relationships.
Exactly. And our mission together, think of us as your guides, is really to help you navigate this constant flood of information. We want to connect the dots, between things that might seem totally unrelated, and hopefully uncover those aha moments that help make sense of this rapidly changing world. You'll get more than just the headlines. We'll give you the why behind things, the so what, what it actually means, and we'll do it with enough detail to keep you hooked, but hopefully not feeling overwhelmed. So get ready. Let's explore the surprising facts that matter most to you, our curious listener.
All right, let's get into it. Let's unpack this global chessboard, starting with some pretty high-stakes economic diplomacy. President Donald Trump is currently on his state visit to the United Kingdom.
Yeah.
And the big headline, diplomacy and dollars. Specifically, the U.S. and the U.K. are apparently set to announce economic deals worth more than $10 billion. $10 billion. I mean, that's not exactly pocket change, is it?
No, certainly not. And what's really significant here, I think, is that these agreements aren't just random deals, they're strategically focused, enhancing cooperation in three key areas: technology, civil nuclear power, and defense. So this isn't just, a ceremonial photo op or a handshake. It represents a very deliberate, a very forward-looking alignment of their national interests. It's designed to boost both countries' capabilities and their global influence in these really critical sectors.
And get this, it actually marks President Trump as the first U.S. president to be invited to 2 state dinners in Britain. He had a previous visit back in 2019. Now, I don't know about you, but getting invited back for a second fancy dinner usually means you made a pretty good impression the first time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what does this really tell us about that special relationship we always hear about between the U.S. and the U.K., especially with all the political shifts happening?
Well, it speaks volumes, actually.
Yeah.
Historically, that special relationship has always been about deep intelligence sharing, cultural links, shared strategic goals. This second state dinner invitation, especially coming alongside these, major economic and strategic commitments, it really underlines a continued strong alignment at the very top. And the focus, as you mentioned, on cutting-edge sectors like advanced tech AI, cybersecurity, and civil nuclear power for energy security, plus defense. It shows they're looking towards future challenges, not just sort of maintaining old trade patterns. Senior U.S. officials even pointed out that several big names from U.S. tech businesses are traveling with President Trump, which really highlights that economic and technological focus. It's a move, really, to solidify their positions on the global stage, leveraging their mutual strengths for, a collective advantage, particularly now with increasing geopolitical competition.
Okay, well, from that high-stakes economic diplomacy sounds a bit like a fancy global board game. We transition now to some much colder winds blowing across Europe. We're talking escalating military tensions here.
Indeed. And this brings us to a really critical look at rising tensions across Europe, specifically around European airspace, which has become a real flashpoint. We saw a sharp escalation just earlier this month. An alarming number of Russian drones, 19 of them, specifically breached Polish airspace. Now, this wasn't just, a minor glitch or some accidental straying off course.
18 Russian drones. Wow,
Yeah.
that's a substantial number, and frankly, pretty bold. And the response was swift, right? The United Kingdom committed to deploying fighter jets to help Poland's air defenses, a clear signal of unity among the North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO allies. And this comes amid all the ongoing concerns about Russia's military actions, especially in Ukraine. So what does a breach like this on this scale really signify for regional stability?
Well, it signifies a clear test of NATO's collective defense posture and, honestly, a blatant disregard for sovereign airspace. The deployment of UK fighter jets, likely advanced ones like the Eurofighter Typhoons, it's a strong deterrent. It's a very concrete demonstration of those Article 5 commitments, even if it's an indirect response. At the same time, Poland is actually urging NATO to implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine as a defensive measure against these increasing drone threats from Russia. These incidents just underscore how fragile peace really is in Eastern Europe right now. And they highlight the critical need to maintain strong military readiness, to counter these potential threats. The calls for a no-fly zone, while they're strategically very complex, they carry significant risks of direct conflict. But they emphasize this heightened sense of insecurity and the urgent need for a more robust collective defense,
Right.
especially given these new vulnerabilities from drone warfare. Drones can be really hard to detect and intercept compared to, say, traditional aircraft.
Right, right. And speaking of military muscle flexing, we've also seen some significant military drills and some interesting shifts in alliances playing out. Russia and Belarus recently held these large-scale military exercises.
Why?
Zapad 2025, they called it. Involved around 30,000 military personnel from both countries. 30,000. That's a small city's worth of troops.
It is. And these drills featured complex maneuvers. They even included ballistic missile launches. And officials from 23 different countries were there observing, which really underscores the regional and global interest in their capabilities and, well, their intentions. This reflects Belarus's diplomatic outreach, letting observers in, and its strategic positioning with the ongoing conflict in Ukraine nearby. NATO allies, of course, monitor these exercises very closely. It's a critical part of regional security dynamics. They're trying to get insights into military doctrine, potential future actions.
Now, here's where it gets really interesting and quite alarming, apparently, for some Western analysts. India participated. They sent 65 troops to enhance defense cooperation with Russia. And this has drawn alarm. Western analysts are calling it a red line being crossed. Why is India joining Russian-led drills considered such a big deal? What specific red line are we actually talking about here?
Well, it's a significant geopolitical move, no doubt. For Western analysts, especially in the United States, India's participation with Russia in military drills, it's seen as a red line because, well, it implicitly legitimizes Russia's military actions to some extent. And it challenges the U.S.-led efforts to isolate Moscow, particularly given the conflict in Ukraine. India, you see, maintains a very complex, multi-aligned foreign policy. It's always balancing its historical ties with Russia, especially for military hardware, with its growing strategic partnerships with the U.S. and other Western nations, particularly in the Indo-Pacific. So this participation signals a potential shift, maybe temporary, but still a shift in India's foreign policy calculations. And it could certainly strain relations with the United States. The U.S. has been trying hard to draw India closer, as a counterweight to China. It just demonstrates how complex global power dynamics are. They're constantly evolving. Countries are always carefully weighing alliances, economic interests, and their strategic independence.
Meanwhile, while all this high-stakes international drama is unfolding, the UK has been dealing with its own internal political mess. Paul Ovenden, a senior aide to Labour leader Keir Starmer, he resigned. This followed the emergence of some sexually explicit messages he sent back in 2017 about a veteran Labour Member of Parliament, or MP, Diane Abbott. Downing Street called the messages appalling and unacceptable. Seems like something straight out of a very British political soap opera, doesn't it?
It certainly has those elements. These kinds of internal political incidents, they really highlight ongoing challenges within the UK political scene, including serious questions about accountability, appropriate workplace conduct, and the impact of past actions on current political careers. It's not just an isolated case. It speaks to the intense scrutiny public figures are under. And separately, you had Danny Kruger, a Tory MP and shadow minister, defecting from the Conservative Party to the Reform Party. He cited discontent with the Conservative leadership and policies. Now, this isn't just one unhappy politician. It reflects shifting loyalties, maybe deep ideological splits within the Conservative Party itself. These kinds of defections can seriously redefine the future of major parties, especially heading into elections. They signal potential realignments that could reshape the UK's political landscape. Both events show how internal divisions and, ethical lapses can play out very publicly, affecting voter confidence and party stability.
Okay, so from the complexities of European security and UK politics, we now turn our attention to the Middle East, an enduring crucible of conflict, diplomacy, and, sadly, accusations, a region that just always seems to be in the headlines.
Yes, the Middle East crucible is, unfortunately, seeing a significant escalation in Gaza right now. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz declared quite starkly that Gaza is burning. This was as the Israeli military carried out heavy strikes across Gaza City. This then escalated into a full-scale ground offensive, codenamed Gideon's Chariots B. They mobilized 2 divisions initially, with plans for more reinforcements.
2 divisions.
Thanks.
That's tens of thousands of troops. And the stated aim, confirmed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is a full takeover of the Palestinian enclave. I mean, this marks a huge and devastating intensification of the conflict. The humanitarian implications are profound, immediate, for the whole region, but especially for civilians caught in the middle.
Absolutely. And the statements from the Israeli leadership, they really underscore the incredibly high stakes of this military operation. A full takeover implies potentially a long-term occupation or a significant reshaping of how Gaza is governed, which would have huge geopolitical consequences far beyond the immediate fighting. It could create a whole new political reality on the ground. It's just a stark reminder of the immense human cost of conflict and the complex strategic goals driving further instability in an already volatile region.
And the humanitarian situation, it sounds like it's reaching truly desperate levels. A United Nations UN Commission of Inquiry released a report just on September 16th, 2025, and it accused Israel of committing genocide against the Palestinian population in Gaza, citing actions and statements from top Israeli officials. Now, genocide is an incredibly strong, legally charged accusation.
It is. It carries immense weight in international law and diplomacy. And adding to that picture, Tess Ingram, a spokesperson for UNICEF, highlighted the absolutely harrowing conditions for children. Nearly 500,000 children have endured over 700 days of conflict. Being pushed, as she put it, from one hellscape to another, reports are confirming widespread famine conditions in Gaza City. And what's particularly disturbing is this paradox. Markets might appear full of goods, but food is completely unaffordable for most people. A kilo of sugar costing up to $70. 70. This points to a breakdown not just in supply, but in economic access, in distribution. It indicates a much deeper crisis.
$70 for a kilo of sugar. That's just unimaginable. It's like trying to buy groceries with monopoly money. How does this level of accusation, this humanitarian catastrophe, impact international calls for action?
While the UN's accusation of genocide, combined with these widespread reports of severe child malnutrition, we're talking 26,000 children needing urgent treatment, and this apparent strategic manipulation of food access, it dramatically amplifies calls for international accountability and for urgent humanitarian intervention. The whole situation raises serious questions about human rights, adherence to the laws of war, and the international community's responsibility to protect civilians. And that high price for basic goods, even when markets seem full, it suggests aid might be reaching certain points, but it's either insufficient, maybe intercepted, or simply priced out of reach for the majority. It points to a systemic failure in aid distribution and economic viability within Gaza.
What's really fascinating here, though, and it kind of shows the global political divide, is the stark contrast in international reactions, the different stances being taken. You have U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio recently visiting the City of David archaeological site in Jerusalem, which is a deeply contentious area right at the heart of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. He even inaugurated something called Pilgrim's Road there. That sounds like a very, very symbolic visit.
Oh, it's highly symbolic, and it carries significant diplomatic weight. The visit is widely seen as a strong endorsement of Israeli claims to East Jerusalem by the Trump administration. Despite widespread criticism that actions like this undermine prospects for a future Palestinian state, basically by prejudging final status issues, the archaeological park itself has faced opposition from UNESCO, the global heritage body, because it's built in a Palestinian neighborhood, which UNESCO says alters the area's historical and cultural character. So Rubio's visit is interpreted by many as a powerful political statement, aligning the U.S. firmly with Israeli narratives about Jerusalem's history and territory.
Okay, so on one side, you have the U.S. making these very visible gestures supporting Israeli claims, but then on the other side, you're seeing European nations taking a very different tack. Ireland's Deputy Prime Minister Simon Harris, for instance, he's pushing for European Union EU members to pressure Israel to stop its military actions in Gaza. He's even urging EU foreign ministers to consider sanctions. And Spain has gone even further, taking a really decisive step.
They have indeed. Spain canceled nearly 1 billion euros worth of defense contracts with Israeli firms. This includes major items like Salam rocket launchers, Spike anti-tank missiles, big stuff. And Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez explicitly cited atrocities and genocide as the reason for pursuing a permanent arms embargo against Israel. And this isn't just Spain acting alone. Other European nations, Italy, Belgium, the Netherlands, they've also imposed bans or restrictions on arms exports to Israel. So these contrasting diplomatic moves, they really highlight a deepening international divide over the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While the U.S. continues its strong support for Israel under the Trump administration, you have a growing number of European nations adopting more critical stances and taking concrete actions driven by humanitarian concerns, allegations of human rights violations. They're trying to exert economic and diplomatic pressure. It's a very complex, shifting landscape.
Okay, well, from the intense heat of global conflicts, which, yeah, sometimes feel like a high-stakes game with devastating real-world consequences, let's turn now to the fascinating cool of scientific discovery and tech innovation. Get ready to explore beyond Earth because things are about to get literally out of this world.
All right, let's start our journey by looking out into the cosmos, exploring beyond Earth, Mars, the Moon, even comets. On the red planet, NASA's, that's the National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Curiosity rover, is still hard at work, sending back incredible images and data.
Oh, I love the Curiosity rover. It's like our own little robotic explorer on Mars, sending postcards back home. It's captured these really intriguing images of what scientists call boxwork geological features and these distant wind-sculpted landscapes using its right navigation camera and its instruments, like ChemCam that analyzes rock chemistry and MassCam, which takes the pictures. They're diligently investigating, helping us understand Mars' geological history, its evolution. But boxwork, that sounds like something my kid would build with blocks, not something you find on Mars. What exactly are those?
That's a good analogy. Boxwork geological features are these intricate sort of vein-like patterns, almost like a honeycomb or grid carved into the rocks. On Earth, they often form when fluids rich in minerals flow through cracks in sedimentary rock. They solidify, and then the softer rock around them erodes away, leaving these harder, angular patterns behind. Finding them on Mars gives us critical clues about its geological past, especially the history of water flow on the planet, which of course fuels our curiosity about whether Mars could have ever supported life. These features tell us about the planet's internal processes, how its surface changed over billions of years.
That's incredible, just reading the history in the rocks. And speaking of potential life, there's this separate, highly intriguing development. Researchers have reportedly found leopard spots on Mars rocks, which they say could potentially be evidence of life. Now that sounds like something straight out of science fiction. What are these leopard spots and why would they point towards life?
Well, this is a truly tantalizing discovery, if it holds up, that is. These leopard spots are described as small, dark, kind of circular patterns, distinct from the rock around them. Researchers are hypothesizing that they could be fossilized microbial mats, or maybe mineral deposits formed by biological processes. Similar to certain types of extremophiles we find here on Earth, organisms that thrive in really harsh conditions. Now, if this theory is proven correct, through more analysis, reproducible evidence, it would be a complete game changer. It would totally rewrite our understanding of life beyond Earth. The search would shift from just looking for conditions suitable for life to finding direct evidence of life itself. Huge implication.
Wow. Mind-boggling, really.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what else is hiding up there. But we're also looking closer to home, right? Trying to get back to our own celestial neighbor, the Moon. Lunar Outpost, they're one of 3 teams NASA picked back in April 2024. They're gearing up for a big 1-year feasibility study, focused on operating a moon rover. More moon rovers. I love it.
Yeah, this initiative is a really crucial step in humanity's return to the moon. And not just for, planting flags and taking samples, but for establishing a more sustained presence there. Lunar Outpost's mission control setup uses advanced tech, sophisticated AI for autonomous navigation, real-time data processing, plus really robust logistical planning to operate the rover effectively on the moon's surface, especially in those challenging polar regions where there might be water ice. It really highlights the innovative approaches being taken for lunar exploration now, and the growing collaboration between government agencies like NASA and the private sector, really pushing the boundaries of what we can do on the moon.
Okay, and for those of us with a bit of cosmic curiosity, and let's be honest, who doesn't love a good comet story? There's even something called the Ultimate Comet Challenge. It's an interactive quiz, apparently. Lets you explore the history and science behind comets. Everything from how ancient civilizations saw them as, bad omens, to our modern scientific understanding of what they're made of, their significance in the solar system?
Yeah, that sounds like a great format. It makes complex astronomy topics much more accessible and fosters a broader appreciation for space science and how our knowledge has evolved over time. It's a fantastic educational tool because it connects those ancient human experiences, seeing comets as, harbingers of doom or maybe divine messages, with our modern scientific view, revealing them as these icy leftovers from the early solar system, holding clues to its formation. It really shows how our understanding of the universe is constantly changing, blending history with cutting-edge science.
From looking way out into the cosmos and thinking about ancient beliefs, we now shift focus to the competitive and increasingly strategic realm of human-made technology, both in orbit and down here on Earth. Some are calling it the new space race, and this one, it has some very real geopolitical stakes.
Oh, the space race is definitely heating up again, and we're seeing a clear satellite standoff playing out right now, up in orbit. The rivalry between the U.S. and China in space continues to intensify. On September 8th, China's Jilin-1 satellite constellation managed to photograph a U.S. Worldview Legion satellite from a pretty remarkable distance, too, between 40 and 50 kilometers away.
40 to 50 kilometers, that's incredible resolution, like trying to snap a clear picture of a bird from miles away, but in space. And this was apparently a tactical maneuver following an earlier time when a U.S. satellite got detailed images of China's Shijian-26 satellites, like a cosmic game of I Spy. And China's Chang'an satellite, the company operating those Jilin-1 satellites, they boast having over 100 satellites capable of high-resolution imagery. What are the bigger implications of this kind of tit-for-tat reconnaissance happening in orbit?
Well, this tit-for-tat spying showcases significant advancements in satellite tracking and imaging tech from both countries. These are capabilities that, not too long ago, were really the exclusive domain of just a couple of space powers. It reflects a deeper, more competitive dynamic developing up there, and it raises serious concerns about the militarization of space, the potential for conflict. These satellites aren't just for taking pretty pictures of Earth, they have the dual-use capabilities that can be used for surveillance, potentially even as anti-satellite weapons platforms down the line. This competitive dynamic has become especially pronounced since the U.S. established its Space Force in 2019, and China created its People's Liberation Army Aerospace Force. Both are focused on projecting power in space. It really underscores the urgent need for international rules, norms of behavior to prevent accidental collisions or deliberate interference that could escalate tensions dramatically far beyond Earth.
Right. And speaking of military tech, back down on Earth, there's a report from CNN suggesting the U.S. military is currently playing catch-up in drone warfare. Struggling with production capacity, tactics, even design innovation, the Pentagon is apparently scrambling to enhance its capabilities, using things like 3D printing for drone production, developing new training methods. Playing catch-up, that sounds like a precarious position for a global superpower.
It is. It highlights a critical area of strategic vulnerability. Major General Kurt Taylor emphasized that drones will be absolutely pivotal in future conflicts. And this reality shows just how rapidly modern warfare is evolving. The U.S. faces challenges not just in manufacturing drones quickly enough, but also in innovating designs to match adversaries and developing tactics to counter these fast-evolving drone threats. Using 3D printing, for example, allows for rapid prototyping, localized production that can speed up deployment and customization right in the field. What's even more intriguing, though, is that Ukraine has apparently offered a massive $50 billion plan to co-manufacture 10 million drones with the U.S. within 5 years. Now, that could be a crucial partnership, leveraging Ukraine's hard-won battlefield experience and their urgent need for drones to potentially bridge the U.S. drone gap and counter these rising global threats more effectively. It's a very pragmatic solution born out of necessity that could really transform defense capabilities.
Wow, 10 million drones. That's a huge offer, a huge potential partnership. Okay, so from the strategic heights of space and defense, let's bring it back down to Earth again, to the innovations and sometimes disruptions impacting our daily digital lives, starting with the ever-present force of artificial intelligence.
Yes, artificial intelligence, or AI. Google is making a really significant commitment in the United Kingdom. Ruth Porat, who is Google's president and chief investment officer, announced a substantial investment, $5 billion, that's about 6.3 billion US dollars, into AI within the UK.
£5 billion. That's a massive vote of confidence in the UK tech scene, isn't it? And this investment is specifically aimed at leveraging the local tech ecosystem there, enhancing Google's own AI capabilities. From research right through to practical applications, Porat highlighted what she called the profound profound opportunities in the UK for tech advancement. It shows the UK is really becoming a critical hub for AI development, attracting top talent, fostering innovation.
Absolutely. This investment really underscores the UK's growing importance as a center for AI development. And it reflects Google's strategic vision to be a global leader in AI innovation. Investments like this aren't just expected to foster breakthroughs in machine learning or data processing. They're also expected to create thousands of high-skilled jobs, stimulate significant economic growth in the UK tech sector. It aligns with the UK's broader national strategies to lead in future tech and stay competitive globally. It's really a mutually beneficial relationship, solidifying the UK's position in the global AI race.
Now let's talk about something we all experience daily, maybe without even noticing it too much. Operating system updates. The upcoming Android 16 update is set to introduce a pretty significant change. It's going to enforce auto-themed icons across all apps and developers. They won't be able to opt out. It sounds a bit like a mandatory uniform for your phone apps, doesn't it?
It does, a bit. And concurrently, Apple just officially released macOS Tahoe 26, which features significant upgrades to its Spotlight search, making it much more powerful, apparently more intuitive. And it introduces its own integrated phone app right into the desktop experience, so you can manage calls from your Mac. These updates reflect that continuous drive by the tech giants to refine the user experience, integrate their systems more tightly, though, yeah, sometimes it comes at the cost of developer autonomy or user customization. Android's move seems aimed at creating a more cohesive look across the system, while Apple's enhancements prioritize seamless connectivity between devices and powerful search. Just different philosophies on user interface and control, really.
It's always that balancing act, isn't it? User experience versus customization or, maybe forced uniformity. Okay, switching gears slightly. Cybersecurity challenges in manufacturing. This is becoming a really serious concern hitting major companies. Jaguar Land Rover JLR. They experienced a significant cyber attack recently. It disrupted their operations, actually led to a temporary halt in production.
Yeah, and while the company did resume production on September 24th, industry experts are warning that the repercussions could last a while. Impacts on the supply chain, production schedules, they could extend right through until November. This incident is just a stark reminder of how vulnerable these interconnected manufacturing systems are to cyber threats. Modern car production relies heavily on just-in-time supply chains, automated systems, makes them incredibly efficient, but also highly susceptible to digital disruptions. The long-lasting consequences these attacks can have across an entire industry, production delays, financial losses, reputational damage, it just highlights the critical need for robust cybersecurity measures and solid incident response plans across all industrial sectors, not just automotive.
Finally, in a major digital development that almost had us all saying goodbye to a certain viral video platform, TikTok's future seems secure, at least for now in the U.S. Negotiators from the U.S. and China have reportedly reached a framework deal regarding TikTok's ownership, successfully preventing that potential ban of the platform in the United States. I bet a lot of short-form video creators are breathing a huge sigh of relief right now.
I imagine so. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who led the U.S. delegation in talks held over in Spain, announced that the commercial terms have been agreed upon. Though the specific details about exactly how the ownership transfer will work haven't been made public yet, the deal is expected to finalize those ownership changes within about 90 days. This resolution marks a pretty significant diplomatic and commercial achievement. It addresses those national security concerns the U.S. had raised about data security, potential foreign influence. While at the same time preserving this globally popular digital platform, it showcases a pragmatic approach, really, to navigating these complex tech geopolitical issues. Shows that sometimes a balance can be struck between national security interests and the continuation of global digital services.
Okay, from the cutting-edge world of high-tech and outer space, let's bring our focus back firmly to Earth, to the intricate layers of human society, economics, and the environment that shape our everyday lives. Because, yeah, as much as we love space news, we do all live down here.
Absolutely. Let's start with some economic undercurrents. We have some interesting insights into individual savings and also global trade dynamics. First, an analysis of 401k retirement balances among high earners, people often categorized as the upper class. It reveals they typically do have greater savings. They often surpass the Internal Revenue Service or IRS contribution limits.
Right, so you'd think they're totally set for retirement, yeah. Just picturing Scrooge McDuck diving into his money bin.
Yeah.
But apparently, despite these advantages, many still face retirement readiness issues due to things like inadequate planning, maybe overspending, unexpected expenses later in life. It really challenges that assumption that just having a high income automatically means you're financially secure for life. Why is that? What's happening beneath the surface of these seemingly flush accounts?
It's a complex picture. This insight really does challenge that assumption about automatic security at higher income levels. While high earners certainly have greater access to capital, investment opportunities, they're not immune to the universal need for strategic investment and regular saving. Often, what happens is their lifestyle expenses tend to grow right alongside their income, which can lead to insufficient savings rates relative to the kind of retirement lifestyle they envision. Plus, unexpected things, major medical bills, needing to support adult children longer than planned, business setbacks, those can derail even really robust plans. It highlights broader patterns in wealth management across the economy. It shows that financial planning discipline, things like budgeting, diversified investing, prudent spending, it's crucial regardless of your salary. Perceived wealth doesn't always translate to long-term financial readiness.
Interesting. Meanwhile, over in India, there's been a bit of tax deadline controversy that really got people worked up. India's income tax department announced this unexpected one-day extension for filing income tax returns, or ITRs, for the 2025-26 assessment year, pushing the deadline from September 15th to September 16th is one day. I mean, what kind of impact does a one-day extension actually have? Is that even helpful?
Not really, no. And that's precisely why this last-minute change, even though it was brief, sparked significant backlash from chartered accountants, from taxpayers themselves. They labeled the one-day extension an insult, basically, an ineffective solution to the challenges they face when filing. For many people, tax filing is a complex, often multi-day process. You're gathering documents, reconciling accounts, maybe consulting with professionals. A single day's extension. It offers virtually no practical relief. If anything, it just adds to the stress, the cynicism. This whole incident really highlights the friction that can exist between tax authorities and the public. It reveals these deep-seated frustrations with bureaucratic processes often seen as rigid, unresponsive, and it shows a perceived lack of understanding of the real-world challenges taxpayers face trying to manage complex financial obligations under tight deadlines.
Right. Sounds frustrating. Now, moving to international trade, the United States and India are grappling with some ongoing tensions. They're resuming critical trade negotiations aimed at resolving specific issues, particularly these punitive 50% tariffs the Trump administration imposed on Indian exports. And these tariffs, they're directly linked to India's purchase of Russian oil. So again, it's not just about trade balances, is it? It's geopolitics playing out in the marketplace.
Absolutely. That 50% tariff isn't just a trade barrier. It's a clear punitive measure, directly tied to India's energy policy and its relationship with Russia, which is a relationship that, predates the current geopolitical situation, but has become much more contentious since the conflict in Ukraine. What's particularly impactful here is the ripple effect this has on India's textile sector. That's a vital part of their economy, contributes 2.3% to their gross domestic product, or GDP, and it employs over 45 million people, a huge number, many of whom are women in rural areas. Major firms like Nikkar Industries, they supply big global brands like GAP, Tommy Hilfiger. They reported a complete halt in new orders because of this, signaling potential widespread job losses. So these trade talks aren't just about balancing ledgers. They have profound geopolitical implications, and they directly impact millions of livelihoods in India, plus broader international economic collaboration. It shows that complex web of trade, energy security, and foreign policy all tangled together.
Wow. And speaking of labor issues, economic disparities, there's something called an ojol revolution, apparently brewing in Indonesia. Indonesia's motorcycle taxi drivers, represented by Radnigad Wicaksono, he's chairman of a major riders association, they're mobilizing for this ojol revolution. They're demanding better working conditions. Amidst rising underemployment, socioeconomic disparity, they're expressing deep dissatisfaction with the government's perceived failure to create secure jobs. And recent protests even escalated after a driver was tragically killed by a police vehicle. What exactly is an ojol? What does this revolution tell us about the global gig economy?
Okay, so ojol is the term for Indonesia's motorcycle taxi drivers. They're a massive gig economy workforce, absolutely ubiquitous in Indonesian cities. This movement, which involves nearly 2 million of these gig workers, it really exemplifies this growing global struggle. Gig workers everywhere fighting for fair labor practices, stable income, the kind of social protections traditional employment usually offers. They're demanding things like minimum wage guarantees, health benefits, clearer regulations from a government they feel has failed to address rampant underemployment and these widening socioeconomic gaps. The escalation of protests after a driver was killed by a police vehicle. It just underscores the raw social unrest that can erupt when economic inequalities are left unaddressed. It reflects a broader challenge facing many nations with large gig economies where worker rights often lag way behind technological innovation.
On a more philosophical note, maybe a more hopeful economic note, Chevalier Frederick Cao, he's a Singaporean tycoon from the well-known Zhao Pao Chi, or TPC, group. He's advocating for a shift towards what he calls a well-being economy, a model that prioritizes human and environmental health over traditional profit-driven business models. That sounds like a pretty radical departure from classic capitalism.
It is, and it's a significant philosophical pivot, but also a practical one in business. Cao argues that conventional capitalism, primarily driven by quarterly profits, endless growth, it's simply unsustainable, especially amidst accelerating climate change, resource depletion, rapid technological evolution. His well-being economy model proposes integrating social and ecological health right into the core business strategy, viewing them not as side issues or externalities, but as fundamental components of long-term success. And his TPC group oversees tangible initiatives, community support programs, career training for low-income families, demonstrating a practical application of these principles. This represents a leading figure trying to redefine corporate responsibility in response to these pressing global challenges, aiming for a more holistic, sustainable form of economic activity rather than just maximizing shareholder value at all costs.
Interesting. For the mechanics of global economies, let's turn now to the profound social shifts impacting our personal lives, our community safety. And we're starting with some, frankly, startling data on what some are calling the digital divide in intimacy. The Institute for Family Studies, or IFS, suggests there's a global trend of declining intimacy, particularly among unmarried young adults.
Yes, this is a sobering observation. And it seems directly linked to the increasing prevalence of digital technology, which has significantly reduced the time couples actually spend together, physically present with each other. The data indicates that social interactions have also dropped significantly across the board. Young adults report spending less than half the time with friends compared to just a decade ago. And we see similar trends in other countries, like France, where a concerning 25%, a quarter of young adults reported having no sexual relations at all over the past year. It really sheds light on the subtle yet profound impact technology is having on human connection. It raises serious questions about the future of social relationships, the potential for increased isolation, loneliness, even in our hyper-connected digital age.
Now, here's something that might make you think twice next time you board a plane. Toxic fumes. A Wall Street Journal investigation has revealed a concerning increase in incidents where toxic fumes infiltrate airplane cabins, posing serious health risks to pilots, flight attendants, and passengers. This isn't just like a bad smell, is it?
Not at all. It's a significant and potentially widespread public health and safety concern within the aviation industry. Drawing from over 1 million reports from the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA, and NASA, the investigation highlights that manufacturers and airlines have allegedly downplayed these hazards for years. The number of reported incidents rose dramatically, from about 12 per million departures back in 2014 to nearly 108 per million in 2024. That's a huge jump. The health risks range from acute symptoms, headaches, dizziness, breathing problems, to potential chronic neurological issues and long-term illnesses, especially for crew members with repeated exposure. What's even more alarming is that Airbus A320 family aircraft, while making up only about 20% of the U.S. fleet, accounted for 80% of these reported fume events between 2018 and 2023. That imbalance points towards potential design flaws or maybe maintenance issues specific to certain aircraft types. It really demands greater transparency and accountability from airlines and regulators to ensure passenger and crew safety.
Wow, 80% from 20% of the fleet. That's stark. Okay, back on the ground in the UK, a hidden crisis has emerged regarding opioid deaths. Recent reports indicate that thousands of opioid-related deaths in England and Wales have actually been excluded from official statistics. This raises huge concerns about the validity of the data being used to shape government policies. So are we essentially flying blind on a major public health crisis?
That's a very accurate way to put it, unfortunately. Activist groups, health professionals, they've expressed outrage. They emphasize that accurate, comprehensive data is absolutely crucial for developing effective strategies to combat the opioid epidemic. This exclusion, likely due to inconsistent reporting standards or maybe specific, narrow definitions of what counts as an opioid-related death, it creates a critical flaw in public health reporting. It not only hinders effective intervention strategies by obscuring the true scale of the problem, it also erodes public trust in official figures, makes it harder to secure funding, public support for vital health initiatives. It just underscores the absolute need for transparency and standardized reporting when addressing major health crises like this.
Moving across the Atlantic now.
Immigration enforcement and its impact on communities in the United States remains a really charged issue. President Trump has threatened to declare a national emergency in Washington, D.C. and, quote, take control of the local police if they don't cooperate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, regarding immigration enforcement. That's a pretty heavy threat against local governance, isn't it?
It's an exceptionally strong statement, yes, and one that raises significant constitutional questions about the limits of federal power over local police forces and city governments. This stance comes at a time when, for example, the restaurant industry in Texas is facing significant challenges. Fears surrounding recent ICE raids are causing many immigrants, documented or not, to avoid dining out, just staying home, keeping a low profile. And this fear-driven avoidance has led to substantial drops in revenue for many restaurants, leading to potential layoffs, even closures. This whole issue just showcases the intense political polarization around immigration. It illustrates how federal policies, even just the threat of stepped-up enforcement, can have profound, direct impacts on local communities, businesses, the very fabric of daily life, far beyond the immediate targets of those enforcement actions.
And then there's the deeply disturbing issue of political violence and online radicalization in the U.S. The tragic assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk in Utah has sparked a highly charged political debate. The alleged assassin, Tyler Robinson, he's 22, reportedly influenced by leftist ideology. He's been linked to the crime scene by DNA evidence from a towel and a screwdriver, apparently, along with a threatening note. This is just a grim event, and the fallout seems to be spreading widely.
It is an incredibly polarizing and tragic event, yes. White House officials J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller have publicly pledged to, quote, go after left-leaning organizations. Miller even attributed blame to terrorist networks, reflecting a very strong condemnation and a call for aggressive measures against groups they perceive as responsible. In parallel, Republicans are intensifying pressure on tech companies regarding the viral spread of graphic social media posts related to the incident, demanding greater content moderation, more accountability from these platforms. This deeply polarizing event just underscores that dangerous intersection of political extremism, the often unbridled nature of online discourse, and real-world violence. It raises critical questions about the responsibilities of social media platforms in maybe curbing radicalization, about the influence of partisan rhetoric in fueling extremism, and the profound challenges of maintaining public safety in such a highly charged political atmosphere where political divisions can, tragically, escalate into violent acts.
Our journey through the social fabric also uncovers these unsolved mysteries, these persistent calls for justice, which sadly seems to be a recurring theme globally. Sarm Heslop, she was a 41-year-old flight attendant from England. She's been missing for 4 years now. Disappeared from her boyfriend's yacht in the Virgin Islands back in March 2021. Now, new footage has emerged showing her in a bar just before she disappeared. It's reignited interest in this unsolved case. Her boyfriend faced scrutiny, but no charges were ever filed.
Right. These cases really highlight the enduring struggle for justice for victims of violence and the complexities of investigations, especially when they cross international borders or maybe involve individuals with connections or privilege who might avoid immediate accountability. The reappearance of footage in Sarm Heslop's case, it's a fresh lead, potentially. But the fact that no charges were filed against her boyfriend despite scrutiny, it points to the difficulties in gathering sufficient evidence in these kinds of circumstances, especially when jurisdictions and legal systems differ. Similarly, over in Kenya, a high court mandated the arrest of a British national linked to the 2012 murder of Agnes Wanjiru. She was a local woman whose body was found in a septic tank near a British Army training ground in Nanyuki. But while the court ordered the arrest, the suspect's name was controversially kept confidential, which raises concerns about potential protection due to nationality or other factors. These incidents just underscore the critical need for transparency, for cross-border cooperation, and for accountability in pursuing justice for all victims, regardless of their background or the alleged perpetrator's status.
And finally, a truly troubling case involving child protection and legal challenges. Melissa Town was acquitted of murder charges related to the death of her 5-year-old daughter, Nicole Bradshaw Town. The child was discovered with horrific injuries, a slit throat, her head covered in a trash bag. Melissa Town initially told authorities that her daughter was evil. It's just horrific. And the acquittal is deeply unsettling for many.
Yes, this case raises profound, very troubling questions about mental health, the effectiveness of child protection systems, and the complexities of the legal system in delivering justice for the most vulnerable victims. An acquittal in circumstances like these often implies that the prosecution failed to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. perhaps due to factors relating to the defendant's mental state at the time, maybe a lack of proven intent, or other legal technicalities that can profoundly impact a verdict, even when the evidence seems devastating. The mother's initial statement about her daughter being evil certainly points towards potential underlying mental health issues, which, if unaddressed or poorly managed, can obviously have catastrophic consequences. It's just a stark reminder of the challenges in protecting children and ensuring proper accountability, especially when mental health is a complicating factor. And it leaves many asking how such a tragic outcome could occur within our existing social and legal safeguards.
As we conclude this part of our exploration societal challenges, from hidden deaths to heartbreaking failures, let's pivot. Let's look at how we uncover the past and how we respond to the urgent warnings coming from our changing environment.
Okay, our deep dive into the past and present continues now with some truly remarkable archaeological finds, alongside some critical environmental warnings we need to heed. First, off the coast of Sicily, near the Aegean Islands, divers have discovered a remarkably well-preserved Roman helmet, 2,200 years old.
Wow. 2,200 years old. Imagine seeing that emerge from the depths. That's like finding a Model T Ford from the very first production run, perfectly intact. It's believed to be the Montefortino style, right?
Yeah.
That classic Roman legionary helmet. And it dates back to the First Punic War, which was, 264 to 241 BCE. That was a huge conflict. Established Rome as the dominant Mediterranean power, shaped ancient history for centuries. What does a find like this really tell us?
Well, this kind of archaeological find offers a truly tangible, vivid link to that distant past. It gives us invaluable insights into ancient warfare, Roman military technology, even the daily lives of soldiers during that era of intense empire building. The Montefortino-style helmet, characterized by its conical shape, often with that upward peak or knob. It was standard issue for Roman legionaries for a long time. Its preservation is exceptional. It really showcases the unique conditions on the seabed, which can protect organic materials, metals from degrading. Discoveries like this are like opening a little window directly onto a specific moment in history. They let us visualize the equipment, the struggles of those who fought in these transformative ancient conflicts.
Amazing. Now, from ancient relics to a very modern and honestly somewhat ominous discovery that really highlights our changing planet, a new island has just popped up. In Alaska, this new island, named Prow Knob, has emerged in Alsek Lake. That's within Glacier Bay National Park. And it's not just, a cute little new piece of land appearing, is it? There's a bigger story here.
No, it's definitely not just a cute landmark. It's a stark visual indicator of a much larger global phenomenon. Its formation is a direct result of the continuous retreat of the Alsek Glacier over several decades, driven by rising global temperatures, satellite imagery, data from the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. They've extensively documented these changes, showing a dramatic reduction in glacial mass over time. So the emergence of Prow Knob is this striking, tangible representation of climate change in action. It's a powerful indicator of glacial melt and its contribution to rising sea levels. And this isn't just happening in Alaska. Similar things, new islands, new lakes forming from retreating glaciers, are being observed in other cold regions around the world. It highlights the profound, visible ways our planet's landscape is transforming due to human-induced climate change, fundamentally reshaping ecosystems and coastlines.
Wow, a brand new island is a warning sign. And the consequences of extreme weather, tragically, are being felt very acutely elsewhere. A series of devastating landslides in Sabah, Malaysia, resulting in the tragic deaths of at least 13 people, including 7 children. The region's just been battered by heavy rainfall, leading to nearly 90 incidents, landslides, flash flooding, road collapses just over the past week.
Yes, this catastrophe marks the deadliest weather event in Sabah, which is in Malaysia, in nearly 30 years. The combination of prolonged heavy rainfall saturating the soil, possibly coupled with unstable geological formations in the area, just created the perfect storm for these devastating landslides. And forecasts predict more heavy rainfall is coming, making the situation even more precarious for rescue efforts and for future stability. This tragic event just underscores the increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events globally. It highlights the urgent need for improved infrastructure, better early warning systems, and robust flood and landslide management plans in vulnerable areas, especially in the context of a rapidly changing climate that's clearly intensifying these kinds of hydrological extremes.
On a different note of environmental concern, but equally damaging. Illegal mining. It's causing significant pollution over in Mozambique. In the Menica province there, illegal gold mining operations in the Review River and its tributaries have become a major environmental crisis. Thousands of miners that are known locally as garimperos are using toxic materials like mercury and cyanide to extract gold. How damaging are these methods? to the environment and to the people who rely on those waters.
The methods are incredibly damaging, devastatingly so. These garimperos, often driven by economic desperation, lack of other jobs, they use these rudimentary but highly toxic techniques. Mercury is used to bind with tiny gold particles, forming an amalgam. Then it's often burned off, releasing poisonous mercury vapor straight into the air, and liquid mercury flows into the water systems. Cyanide, another potent toxin, is also commonly used to leach gold from ore. This whole process severely contaminates the soil, the water. It particularly affects the crucial Shikamba Dam water source, which provides drinking water and irrigation for thousands of people downstream. This situation exemplifies the severe environmental degradation that can result from unregulated resource extraction. It poses significant threats to ecosystems, to public health, through contaminated food and water, and really to long-term sustainability for the entire region. It's a critical challenge, trying to balance those immediate economic pressures, often faced by marginalized communities, with essential environmental protection.
Let's shift now to something a bit more, well, cerebral, maybe a little bit spooky even. The science of gut feelings. Oh yeah, there's preliminary research being done by a cognitive neuroscientist, Julia Mossbridge. She's seriously investigating those gut feelings, those inexplicable instincts that hint something significant might happen. And her work posits that these sensations could potentially be recollections from the future. That sounds like something straight out of a philosophical sci-fi movie. What does recollections from the future even mean in a scientific context? Is this fringe science or?
Well, it definitely challenges our conventional understanding of time, doesn't it? Julia Mossbridge's work suggests that our consciousness might somehow interface with different dimensions of time and experience, meaning our brains could potentially receive subtle subconscious signals about future events before they happen. Now, conventional science is still waiting for reproducible evidence. This is very much in the realm of preliminary research, theoretical models right now. But that said, there are countless anecdotes from people across cultures throughout history illustrating this kind of intuitive foresight. People reporting inexplicable feelings or premonitions that later turn out to be accurate. The scientific challenge, of course, is moving beyond anecdote to measurable, controlled experiments. That's the hurdle. But if it were ever proven, it would fundamentally push the boundaries of what we consider possible in human cognition and our interaction with reality. It would open up fascinating possibilities for how we perceive and interact with the world, even if only on a subconscious level.
Wow, recollections from the future? Okay. And finally, something truly innovative. And quite literally, cool. Electricity from ice. There's initial research exploring the concept of generating electricity from ice, an area that's apparently been previously neglected. Water's unique angle-dependent dielectric constant is proving to be a fascinating subject for study here. So are we talking about making power from frozen water? I'm picturing like little ice cubes with tiny wires sticking out of them. Is that close?
Not quite tiny wired ice cubes, but the core idea is exactly that. Water's unique property, its angle-dependent dielectric constant, essentially means how well it can store electrical energy and respond to an electric field depends on how its molecules are arranged, particularly when frozen. This is proving to be a really fascinating area. Now, while the current output from these experimental ice-based systems is low, about 0.1 milliwatts, so tiny amounts, scientists are actually pretty optimistic about optimizing systems, maybe using ice salt mixtures. By introducing specific salts, they think they can enhance the electrical output, maybe by creating a better charge separation or some kind of electrochemical reaction within the ice. This novel research offers a truly unconventional but potentially impactful approach to renewable energy. This technology could, down the line, offer a viable solution for generating clean, small-scale electricity. For power, maybe even heating, in regions where freezing temperatures are common, think Arctic, subarctic areas without relying on fossil fuels. Tapping into naturally occurring phenomena like this really paved the way for future alternative energy solutions, especially for remote communities facing the double whammy of climate change impacts and energy shortages.
Electricity from ice. That is definitely one to watch. Wow. Okay. We have navigated a truly astonishing and I think pretty thought-provoking landscape today, haven't we?
Yeah.
From the high-stakes chess game of global geopolitics, the breathtaking advancements on Mars, our digital world, right through to those quiet but profound shifts in human connection and the stark, unavoidable warnings from our changing environment. Our deep dive today really revealed just how interconnected everything is. Seemingly disparate events from finding an ancient Roman helmet to a new island appearing in Alaska.
It truly has. And it leaves you thinking, doesn't it? In a world where scientists are actively exploring how ice can generate electricity, where global powers are literally photographing each other's satellites way up in orbit, and where our very gut feelings might, just might, be strange recollections from the future, how do we adapt? As individuals and, well, as a species.
Yeah. What new forms of energy will we need to harness? Both literal energy, like maybe from ice, but also social energy, like finding ways to rekindle genuine human connection. And what ancient wisdom, perhaps even from those cultures who saw meaning in comets, might we need to rediscover to navigate this dizzying acceleration of technology and the relentless march of environmental change? These are definitely the big questions to mull over.
They absolutely are. And understanding the nuances of all these interconnected events we've discussed, that's really the crucial first step.
Couldn't agree more. So stay curious, everyone. Keep asking those big questions. And please continue to explore the depths of our complex world with us. The more we understand together, the better equipped we are to maybe, just maybe, shape a better future. One deep dive at a time.
For enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.